so plot diagram. So this kind of explains the plot, which we know is what goes on in the story. So it starts out with an exposition. Exposition is like the beginning. It just kind of introduces us to the characters. It tells us a little bit about what the story is about, but it's just really kind of low drama, low, not too much event at the beginning of the story. So we're at the bottom of the mountain, friends. Then we start going to the rising action. So that's when we start finding out about the problem in the story. So what would be the rising action in the Rikki Tikki Tavi story? Tell me in the chat. Good. When Karat tries to attack Teddy, that's like the rising action. So that's when one of the problems starts to happen. Good. And then we know it kind of escalates. All right, friends, we've been talking about the climax of the story. That's where the most action takes place. So if you're looking at the diagram on the right, so here we are. It's like a little problem, and then that problem starts getting bigger, or he starts finding out there's more problems. And then here's that climax. And in this one, the guy turns into Superman, right? And he's fighting against the dragon. So that makes me think about Rikki Tikki Tavi, right? So that's when we kind of, he fought Karat, he kind of proved his worth, but then this is where he's starting to have those problems. So what would be the climax in Rikki Tikki Tavi? Tell us in the chat, please, the climax. Good. So now he's fighting Nag, right? That's exactly right, friends. And then afterwards, and we know that climax kind of takes a while, and it's the most dramatic part, it's the top part of the mountain. But now things kind of start going downhill a little bit. So now he proved he can fight Nag. So he's still in that like fighting mode. So the action is falling a little bit because there's a lull, or there's a lull. When I say lull, I mean L-U-L-L. That means there's like a stop in the action for a little bit. Because Rikki Tikki Tavi starts coming up with his plan of action. Nagaina starts coming up with her plan of action. But we don't really know until the ending, which we usually call the resolution. So we had a problem here, and now we have a solution. So what was the solution, or how did the story end successfully for Rikki Tikki Tavi? Tell us in the chat. Good. Killing Nagaina and, yes, all those to-be-born snakes, right, that were in the eggs. Good. And a big round of applause for our hero, Rikki Tikki Tavi, that saves the day. All right, friends, need very, very good listeners. We are going to use this awesome website called iStoryboard That. And what it is basically I have provided you with some pictures, or to make almost like a comic book or a graphic novel about the story. So you're going to have pictures, and then you are going to be typing at the bottom what's going on in the pictures that goes along with the story. So the exposition, again, you want to think about what happens in the beginning of the story. So like we looked at this page, what do we know just at the beginning that goes along with this picture? We have Mom, we have Dad, we have Teddy. They meet Rikki Tikki Tavi. How does he come to join their family? The conflict. So this is when you start having that rising action. So we know that there's a problem. What's the problem in the story? And that leads to the rising action. All right, so rising action. We talked about where Karat was fighting with Rikki Tikki Tavi. So you would include this part. Then you can move on to the climax. So then we have the climax. I like how they have Mom and Dad in here looking like, and Teddy. They're all kind of shaking in their boots. So we have Nag, and again, they kind of combine these a little bit. There's actually Karat back here on the conflict. So even before, and then the rising action and the climax. So again, you don't have to type exactly what's in the pictures. You want it to follow the story more than the pictures. The pictures are kind of just there, the illustrations, to help support your work and give visual clues. Then the falling action. So then we have where Rikki Tikki Tavi killed Nag. He's kind of moving on. He's going to go off and make his plan to go after those eggs. And Nagaina is going to make her plan to go to the house. And that leads us to our lovely resolution, or end of the story. Looks like they're having a big Thanksgiving meal like they do, feeding Rikki Tikki Tavi table food. Now, what's going to happen is I'm going to send you some choices to do in your breakout rooms. So your first choice is going to be creating the storyboard about Rikki Tikki Tavi, the plot of the story. Your second choice is going to be if you want to do a character analysis. So that means I'm going to send you these blank storyboards. and you're going to tell about the characters. So they did Ricky, Tikki, Tabby as an example. So the character traits, so what do we know about them? Relationship to the other characters in the story, that defining moment. So what is it that makes that character such a good character? So then you can fill in these ideas for Teddy, for Teddy's mom and dad, for Darcy and his wife, for Nag and Nagaina, to Chandra. So you have those also in there. So again, you have a choice. So when you're in the breakout room today, you're going to use typing tool only as always. Yes, you get to choose. What storyboard do you want to work on today?